Good evening, councillors, staff, and dare I say it, members of the Tree Street area. Welcome to this council meeting. It's 5:30. I declare this meeting open, and doing so, I would like to acknowledge the Wadandi Noongar people and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. Just an announcement from me, I have spoken to some of the residents in the room tonight outside. The Tree Street Heritage item, which is currently out for consultation, has been a little bit discussed in recent times. We have determined that we'll have a public meeting or a public information session on the 8th of August. That'll be at 6:30 following our next agenda briefing, at 6:30. Thank you. There are no apologies, we are all here. We have one declarations of interest from Councillor Andrew on the item there at 10.4.1. Are there any other declarations of interest, elected members? Thank you. We're at public question time. As I mentioned again outside, there's a number of questions or notices of questions here from members of the community. As I said outside, all these will be noted, minuted and answered in our minutes. Given we are having the meeting in a few weeks' time, if you'd like to hold those over to that time, we can do. You're also obviously entitled to ask those questions this evening as well. If you don't want to ask them tonight, they'll still be answered in the minutes, and we'll take them as read. I'll leave that up to you. So, starting with the people who have lodged notices, before I do again, and the rationale behind that as well is that tonight's structure is a bit more obviously formal, being the fact there can't be that open dialogue between questions and answers. The session set for the 8th of August will be the informal opportunity to have that open dialogue and that open conversation and follow-up questions where we don't have that opportunity this evening. Firstly up, Adam Gunn. Is Adam here?
Because of the new meeting that's been declared in a couple of weeks. I guess my question was around the planning process doesn't include a grandfather clause, and what is the council going to do to protect the interests of the individuals, the homeowners particularly? And when I say grandfather clause, I realise some people weren't familiar with that. My house is now in contravention, particularly to the wording of that document. What protections do I have until such time as to protect me that I don't have to change my house?
Thank you, Adam. And again, some of these questions have been received, so we may not have answers tonight. If they are taken on notice, again, those answers will be provided in the minutes, but I'll ask the CEO if there's an answer for that question.
Through Mr Mayor, Mr Barber's going to take most of these questions on directly, but probably just the first point I'd make, which is almost an answer to most questions, is to ensure that residents and owners of property actually approach staff to talk about their unique circumstances, because there'll be some questions will be able to be answered generally in nature, but mostly your specific property will need you to be talking directly to our staff to actually get a clear understanding of any implications or otherwise. So perhaps Mr Barber, you can address the question directly.
Through Mr Mayor, in relation to a grandfather clause, if an existing dwelling has all the lawful approvals for any works that have proceeded, there's no need to do any additional works. It's only when new works are proposed to be undertaken that it goes through the process and needs to comply with the policy. So existing houses as they exist, there's no need to make any changes to them. It's not a retrospective policy.
Thank you. Next, is it GZ? Sorry, is that correct? So sorry about that mispronunciation, I'm sure.
That's okay. Hello, thanks for the opportunity.
So I did also just mention, I believe under Act you just do to state your address from what I understand as well before asking your question.
Yeah, my first question is how to define the levels of the contribution. Can the house just downgrade, degrade from to become little or non-contribution from moderate contribution?
Mr CEO?
Through Mr Mayor, Mr Barber will address the question.
Through Mr Mayor. So the consultant's done a review of the area through a street survey, and this consultation process is the opportunity for residents to describe if they don't disagree with that. It's put in their submission, and then we will ask that consultant to then review the validity of that as whether the contribution is indeed the level that was set at the time.
Well, I think we need a clear definition of these three levels of the contribution so that we know our house can degrade or stay the same. Yeah, because as we're aware, the moderate contribution or above cannot be demolished or rebuilt. Yeah. Yeah, and my second question is, if you do not let us to demolish or rebuild, we need to renovate it as its old way. So it costs more than just demolish and rebuild. Will the council give any financial assist if it costs more?
See ya.
Through you, Mr Mayor, the direct answer is no, there is no contribution to owners. So maintenance of the property is the owner's responsibility.
Yeah, but
So, Ms. Day, I'll just stop you. It's not an opportunity, and that's what I mentioned earlier. This is an opportunity for debate. This is an opportunity for question time. We can have this further conversation in a couple of weeks'
Okay.
time, but if we could
All
just
right.
keep your points to questions.
all right, yeah. All right, yeah, that's all my questions.
Okay,
yeah.
we'll see you in a
Thank
couple of
you.
weeks. Thanks, Ms. Day. Crandon Keddy. Is Crandon here?
Thanks for the opportunity. I'm 11 Lovegrove Avenue. My question was really regarding what sort of research was done to deem, the moderate, high and low. And the example for that would be a fibro shack, cottage and a weatherboard home, both being rated high. So I just want to know what is the actual detail? Where do we go with that?
See ya.
Mr Barber, please, Mr Mayor.
Through Mr Mayor, the methodology is included in the consultant's report, and that's available on the Community Connect page. So that details how the assessment was done and what the various levels of significance are, and why a particular dwelling would be weighted the way it's weighted.
Thank you, Mr. Barber. Claire Fisher. Is Claire here? As I mentioned, we will still take that as that question as read, and it'll be minuted. Craig McKinnon.
That can be carried over.
Thank you, Craig. Thank you. John and Jan McDermott. Good. We'll take that as read also. Salmon Woodland.
What plans does the council have for supporting homeowners affected by the Tree Street Heritage Listing proposal, such as insurance, maintenance, additional costs incurred as a result of the adhering to the proposal? Other councils, such as Subiaco, have such policies.
CEO.
Mr Barber, please.
Through Mr Mayor. So the city's got an existing policy quite similar to Subiaco. So we've got a waive of application fees, rate concessions and a free heritage advisory service. I believe Subiaco also offers a grant, which we don't currently have in place. But general maintenance and repairs are always the owner's responsibility, as they are currently.
Is council able to provide the explicit methodology used in compiling the Tree Street Heritage Area proposal?
CEO.
Mr Barber, please.
Through you, Mr Mayor. Yes, that is available. It's on the Community Connect page in terms of the consultant's methodology. It's listed, and there's also Heritage Council WA Heritage Area Guidelines, and it's in accordance with those guidelines.
Has the council completed an impact assessment on the implementation of the proposed Tree Street Heritage Area proposals? Impacts such as being unable to change the homes to meet the council's other priorities such as disability access, home livability, sustainability such as water tanks, solar panels and other adjustments to improve livability and sustainability whilst also reducing financial burdens such as solar rebates.
CEO?
Mr Barber.
Good question. In terms of a formal impact assessment, no. But the heritage area in East Bunbury has all the same similar issues. We don't come across, I guess, negative impacts in that way. Houses are able to adapt to meet modern standards within the guidelines.
Thank you. Ms Woodland?
Excuse me, can I just ask the speaker, speaking to the microphone, we can't hear.
Sorry, yep, great, thank you. Just, thanks, Gary. Mark Woodland.
I'm actually going to say I think my daughter covered it well, so I'm going to leave.
I think she did too, well done. Vicky and Fleur Campbell.
I forgot my paperwork with me.
Okay, we may have them here somewhere, Vicky.
Well, I'll pass it over till the end.
You happy with that? Okay, no problems, yeah, thank you. Thank you. Paul Foley?
That question can be carried over.
Thank you, Paul. Andrew Cook?
Thank you, Mr Mayor, councillors, ladies and gents. I have 3 questions. I'll address them one at a time. My first question: why did the city not consult or communicate with the Tree Street residents that the 2022 assessment survey was being carried out, or provide the owners with a draft of the assessment as per the Heritage Council of WA's guidelines for assessment of local heritage places?
CEO?
Through Mr Barber, please.
Through Mr Mayor. So there were some public notices in the paper advertising that the surveys were going on, but they were undertaken across the whole city. So at the time, we weren't certain whether it was going to be considered as a heritage area or not. The survey has to be undertaken first. So there was one. Sorry, there was.
Yeah.
Do you mind if I sit down,
Yeah,
Mr Mayor?
Mr. Barber, that's a much better option, thanks.
Thanks. So the CBD and the heritage, the Tree Street area was the areas that were undertaken with those surveys. So it was done in accordance with the guidelines. And what else have we got? And this is the consultation process. So the Heritage Consultants Report is available on the Community Connect page as part of this process.
My second question: why was local planning policy 6.2 heritage listings, assessments and concessions missing from information initially supplied by the city for public consultation? And when was it included after a resident pointed out it was missing? Were residents not told of this so they could stay fully informed?
CEO?
Mr Barber, please.
Through you, Mr Mayor. So LPP 6.2 is an existing policy. I think it was adopted by Council in 2018. It's on our website, has been throughout this whole process. It's already adopted, so it wasn't being consulted on per se, because it's already in place, and it only relates to premises that are on the heritage list, not just within a heritage area. When one of the residents raised it, we put it on the Community Connect page just so that it was easier to access, but it is on our website.
And my third and final question is: what are the plans, budgets and details of the city to expand existing and new heritage areas and to add more properties to the City of Bunbury's heritage list?
CEO?
Mr Barber, can you address that or not? I don't think we have that question in writing.
Probably take that one on notice. We have a heritage strategy, so that outlines the future direction, but we'll provide some more details on that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cook. Melina Hurst? Is Melina here? Melanie? Melanie Hurst.
I'm here.
Sorry, Melanie.
No, that's fine. I can ask them, but I might need a copy of them as well.
Yeah.
'Cause Thank you.
Is that what it was?
Okay, so thank you for the opportunity. My first, I live at 72 Beach Road and I own 70 Beach Road. So, if Tree Street was made a heritage area, would a structure be allowed to be built at the front of a property, e.g. a front deck?
CEO?
Mr Barber, can you address that, please?
Through Mr Mayor, it's possible, but it depends on the individual circumstances, which is why we're suggesting residents come in and speak directly to us. So depends on the heritage significance of the dwelling, depends on the proposal, whether the proposal's roofed, how big it is. So it's a pretty open question, that one, that I can't give a direct answer to.
Okay, but there was part of that question missing because there's a councillor on Stockley Road that's currently building a deck in front of a building that would have to be deemed high heritage. So I'm just wondering how that proceeded when they actually know this is actually, you know, in play.
I don't think we can answer that question, sorry. Ms Hurst?
Okay. Okay, will the heritage area policy override the new medium density R codes that come into force in September 2023?
CEO?
Thanks, Mr Barber.
Through Mr Mayor, again, probably take that on notice. They work in conjunction. How they interrelate, we'd have to do a bit more looking into that one.
Okay, so if a development takes place on a property with a R40 code with an existing house with high heritage level, what planning and design will need to be taken into account? E.g., will the design need to be built in a heritage style, like the development?
CEO?
And Mr Barber. Pardon me, Mr Barber.
Through Mr Mayor, again, probably take that one on notice. It's a pretty specific scenario. There's design guidelines in the policy, so they would need to be followed. But that's probably a time like that where our Free Heritage Advisory Service would come in, and if you had a proposal, they would get involved early and take you through that process.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Tony Lillard? Is Tony? Lillard?
Mine can be carried over.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you very much. Claire Clark. Thanks, Claire. We did have one other which was received late, and I don't think they are here anyway. Who was it? Linda Powell. Linda's not here. Great. We'll take that one as read and minute as well. So all those responses will be taken and will be minuted in this agenda that comes out. As the CEO pointed out, for those with very specific questions, very much encourage you to speak with our staff prior to the meeting in 2 weeks' time. That meeting will probably be next door, so a bit more room. And as I mentioned, it'll be informal and we'll be able to have follow-up questions and conversations. But again, very much encouraging you to meet with Mr Barber. As you've seen, he's not too scary. I'm sure he'll be able to address most of your questions. For those with general conversations, general questions, we can hold that over and have that conversation in 2 weeks' time. Those questions, even those who asked for it to be carried over, will still be answered in this minutes, and the answers will go out to you through email as well. There was that question asked me earlier about advertising for this meeting on the 8th. We will advertise it on our social media and in the papers next week, and we'll see what else we can do to make sure that's done. But feel free to obviously let your networks know. Thank you. That's the end of public question time. We do have obviously an agenda to go through this evening. You are free to hang around, but if you would like to move on, then feel free as well. And I'll just give a couple moments for anybody who would like to go home. Maybe just a jar. Yeah, just leave it a jar at least a little bit, Greg. Thanks. Okay, thank you. There was also the responses in the minutes there to questions taken from Mary Collins last week. Those responses are in the minute and have been provided to Mary. Confirmations of the previous minutes. Is somebody happy to move the minutes of the last meeting? Thank you, Councillor Steele. Second to Councillor Quain. All those in favour, please indicate. That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Minutes from the advisory committees. We have the international relations and the policy review. Somebody happy to move those minutes? Thank you, Councillor Kozak. Second to Councillor Quain. I'll put that. Those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. And then the minutes of the special council meeting from the 11th of, oh yes, of course. Councillor Giles, thank you. Councillor McCleary, I'll put that. All those in favour? That's carried. Thank you very much. We have no petitions, presentations or deputations for this evening. We do have a conference delegation report from Councillor Smith. The wording was incorrect in our agenda. That was copied over, I think, from Councillor Gassop's report from Walga. So that wording has been cleaned up in this report. Councillor Smith, you happy to move that? Is there a seconder?
Yes, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Smith, did you want to add anything to the report?
Really, Mr Mayor, it was pretty long as it was. I think we wrote 25 pages, so if anyone bothered to read it. I guess I will say it was a very worthwhile conference to attend. And we were intrigued by the fact that the man who's the Inspector General of local government in Victoria particularly wanted to meet the delegates from Bunbury. We're not quite sure why, but he did ask us a series of questions, and he was really tickled by the thought that our then local government minister might have the red card system, but we didn't think that was going to happen. So it was a really, it was a full-on conference. I think we gained a lot of knowledge from it. And I would recommend that in future years for other female councillors and male councillors too. I have to say there may have been about 6 out of about 200 women. There was about 6 men, but it was a worthwhile conference. Thank you.
Sounds good to me. Question? Sure.
Thank you. Sorry, I don't know what you've updated, but on the copy of the agenda that I got, it's got my name on it.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I wasn't there, so is
Yeah,
that
the previous agenda, the agenda item has the report noted as prepared by Councillor Gassett, Turner, Giles, from the Walga conference anyway. So what's in front of us is what's been moved and accepted. If we wanted to put on there prepared by Councillor Smith, that can be. If not, it's in the report anyway, so it's fine. Thank you. So that was moved and second minute taker. I'll put that. Those in favour, please indicate. That's carried. Thank you very much. So dealing with tonight's agenda, councillors, we have a a few items coming out for discussion. Item 10.1.1, which requires an absolute majority. Item 10.2.1, which requires nominations. And item 10.4.1, which also requires an absolute majority. Is there any others to come out for discussion? Councillor Steck?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. 10.1.3.
10.1.3, thank you. Yep, 10.13, yeah, got that one. The review of council policy, yes. Any further? Thank you. Could I get somebody to move the remainder en bloc? Thank you, Councillor Quain. Second to Councillor Kozisek. I'll put that. Those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. We come to item 10.1.1. Could I have somebody move this? Councillor Andrew and second to Councillor Kozisek. I believe there may have been a slight adjustment to the wording of the policy which has been done at administration level, so it doesn't need that. I might just, have you got that up, minute taker? So councillors, administrationally, and I believe the mover was the suggester of this, so I'm assuming he's happy, but councillors, we just did that word's changed from unauthorised, when authorised to when advised, or unless authorised to when advised. The mover, you were happy with this suggestion, I think it was your suggestion, and the second, Councillor Kozak, you were happy with that? Great. Was there any questions on this, councillors? Question, Councillor Gassett?
Mr Mayor, what does that change do to this motion? I've taken a lot of notes and I was going to address this quite extensively. Does that mean in a committee, in an informal meeting, that we can still disclose information unless specified otherwise? Or we still can't disclose information at an informal meeting, at any informal meeting?
CEO?
Thank you, through Mr Mayor. The conversation that occurred around this item and is reflected in this amendment will be that if a matter is determined to be confidential, elected members will be advised of that, and that'll be on the agenda for that informal briefing or informal meeting, and therefore where those matters are declared to be confidential, they are not to be shared outside of that meeting room. Other topics that are discussed that are not deemed to be confidential in writing by the CEO or the council are able to be discussed freely outside of the meeting facility.
When did this come in, Mr Mayor, the change? Because I've done a lot of work on this. I've even contacted the Minister.
What changed, Councillor
This
Gassett?
change that you just mentioned.
The wording?
Changed the whole context.
I don't think it's changed that much, Councillor Gassett.
Oh, well, can I say it does? Unless authorised by the CEO.
So it's changed.
Question is,
Councillor Gassett, do you have a question?
the question is, prior to today's change, unless authorised by the CEO or by the council, all informal meetings are confidential. Now it's not. And I have to say, I've written to the Minister and I've even written to the Parliamentary Committee.
Councillor Gassett, take a seat.
What's going on?
If you want to speak against it, you can speak against it. This policy went through the policy committee. There was a suggestion to the policy committee. Has been raised through administration about a change. Administration has agreed to that change. That's why it's here. If you're uncomfortable with it, you may speak against it. Your question, you have to ask your question and please make sure it's a question without going into debate.
Just for clarity, I need to ask it, otherwise my 3
So,
pages of
without
notes.
going into debate, would you please?
Without
ask your
going into debate, Mr Mayor, clearly, does this mean that informal committees which were previously to that change were going to be all confidential and now they are not, unless specified under the Act, as authorised by the Act, the CEO, unless he authorises it, unless he declares it confidential? So what changes?
CEO, do you have a response for that?
So initially, Mr Mayor, just to clarify, Councillor Gassett, this is not related to committees. This is related to informal meetings of council members. So there are circumstances where we have those informal meetings where confidential information may be shared, and if it is under the banner of being confidential, then elected members are not permitted to share that information outside of that meeting. The idea behind this change, as originally proposed by Councillor Andrew was to make sure that elected members were very clearly aware of what was confidential and what was not confidential that could be shared or distributed further within the community. So this change is probably trying to make sure that it's very, very clear that if a matter is to be deemed to be confidential by the CEO or by the council, that will be clearly articulated on the agenda for that informal meeting.
Thank you. Councillor Andrew.
Sorry, Mr Mayor, can I just ask a question? 10A, is this a new addition to the policy that has never been before, which may answer Councillor Gassab's question?
Yes. Is there likely to be any debate?
I'll be debating it, but
Okay,
I
thank
may or
you.
may not vote
Councillor
for it.
Andrew.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just quickly, just acknowledging and thank you to Councillor Kozisek for allowing the minor change. As this is a new addition to the policy that hasn't been there before, I am mindful, obviously, about the opportunity for councillors to speak out, I guess, in the public realm, talking about 10.A. Otherwise, I think the rest is pretty self-explanatory. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Andrew. Second was Councillor Kozisek.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just reiterating that, I believe that this inclusion in the policy actually protects councillors from putting information out there that is either premature or perhaps incorrect, as it hasn't been through a full council meeting. And I think it actually gives us more clarity and puts the onus on us to be aware of what is confidential and what isn't. So I urge you to vote for this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kozisek. Speaker against. Councillor Gassab.
I'll speak against the opportunity to speak because I'm actually quite upset. I put in a lot of work into that to debate this motion. I've written to the Minister for Local Government. I've written to the Parliamentary Joint Committee on Delegated Legislation because as it was, all our meetings, all our informal meetings were going to be confidential unless specified otherwise. It's a big change, it's not a minor change, sorry. So what do I do with all this stuff? It's quite amazing. But I was going to say, I'm not sure what's relevant anymore, but yeah, a lot of work for nothing. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a speaker for? Councillor Andrew.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll just acknowledge that this, the original intent was taken from the City of Fremantle, I believe. So this is currently their policy. However, as discussed at the briefing last week, I raised my concerns, particularly probably acknowledging some of Councillor Gassab's concerns. I wasn't happy for reasons of transparency if everything was, I guess, confidential. So this is the opportunity now that when informed, it is confidential, so it is actually in the policy, and we do need that protection in the policy. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll put the current recommendation. Those in favour, please indicate. Those against, Councillor Gassab, one across, one against. Sure, thank you. That's carried. 10.13, question, Councillor Stack.
Oh, no, sir. I'll wait.
Sure, I'll get it on the table first. Yeah, is there a mover to this? Councillor Giles, is there a seconder? Councillor Andrew, did you have a question or are you speaking against, Councillor Stagg?
Speaking against, sir.
Sure. Councillor Giles.
Just briefly, thank you, Mr Mayor. I think this has been well researched and the right people have been consulted with. So I think it can always be amended later if there are things that we don't feel are quite right, as going through the same issue with the Bunbury Water Board at Quest. We've had several iterations of it, and so I don't think it's necessarily going to be there forever in that way, because things change and we might change it later. But for the moment, I think this is a good way to get started on what we need to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Andrew, nothing from yourself. Councillor Stack.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I would just also like to make it very clear in this meeting that I do respect the elderly people and current Aboriginal people and their contributions to this land. But however, I don't believe that by adding the extra wording is going to do anything to help repair any kind of seen or believed damage that is still occurring to Aboriginal people. And I don't believe that waters and things like that are owned by a certain group in the population of the community. They are provided by nature, and it is responsibility of everyone to look after them, all waterways, including fauna and flora. So I find it almost, it's kind of irony because this is about freedoms that were taken away from the stolen generation. But in fact, it's also taken away freedoms away from me to a country I was born in and raised children in. And even in the budget itself, the population is not at a high-end level. Even immigrants that are at a higher level. So we have an obligation to immigrants as well, sir. Over 26% of the population in Bunbury. We have to consider all people, but recognise all contributions from all people, sir.
Thank you. Is there a speaker for this policy? Councillor Steele?
Sorry, I'm not for, but I will.
Question.
Are you able to put the words up on screen so we can actually read and just acknowledge what it actually is? Thank you.
The policy?
The new wording that we're acknowledging. Yeah. Proposed. That's what I heard.
Oh, sorry. Yes. Is there a speaker for? Councillor Smith?
Mr Mayor, I don't think this is a great, we're just saying their continuing connection to the land, waters and community. We're not saying it's theirs or ours or anyone else's, it's just their continuing connection to the land, waters and communities, as all of us who are born here also recognise that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Speaker against? Councillor McCleary? Microphone, please, Councillor McCreary.
I believe we're giving just lip service, and it doesn't matter how many words that you're going to add to it. I think we need to keep it simple. And I believe by just changing the Noongar Wandani people is fine, that terminology needs to change, but I really think that what we have, the original acknowledgement, is quite sufficient, and it's still engaging, it is still recognition. To have that respect to all members of the Aboriginal communities and their cultures, I don't think that I could, because I know there are some, like in every community and organisation that we have, there's not everybody that is pure, and I don't think that I would like to recognise those who aren't pure, quite frankly. So I just think we're nailing it, coming down a bit much, and I see it as more
Point of order,
lip
Mr. Mayor.
service.
Point of order. Councillor Smith. Councillor McCleary, take a seat. Councillor Giles.
I think that wording is very denigrated. A pure, what, pure Aboriginal, is that what you're saying?
No, pure in soul and in heart.
Take a seat, Councillor Giles.
Thank you.
Councillor McCleary, just
So
careful on your wording. Thank you, Councillor
I would prefer to
McCleary.
stay with the original acknowledgement, just having to change the Noongar Wandani people way we've got it round the incorrect way.
Thank you. Is there a speaker for this policy? Who was, Councillor Gassett, do you have a question?
Just a question, Mr Mayor. What about if we'd like to keep the original one and not speak against the new one?
So the recommendation is to update the policy to this new proposed one. So if I'm hearing there's a pro forma that if this is lost, we will move to go with the original. So my suggestion, if you're happy with the original, is to vote against this proposed adjustment or amendment, and that will fall back as a pro forma. Is there a speaker for another question?
Just need to look at the context. I don't know if any legals had a look at it, but to me, the question is, does it, the second one, the proposed new one, restrict the respect? Because we actually, the more you put in, the more you restrict the generality of it. So it actually takes away from the respect.
That's up to individual elected members to work that out, I think. Councillor Gassett, thank you. Was there a speaker for Councillor Andrew?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll keep this short. Mr Mayor, I will be voting for the proposed change. Officers have had consultation with the South West Aboriginal Land and Sea Council, who agreed on the above changes. I don't believe it's our prerogative to change how we do a welcome to country once there has been consultation taken place and they have supported the recommended changes. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Speaker against? Councillor Gassett.
I'll speak against, but I'll definitely emphasise that I support the original one and the intent of the proposed one. I also would like to say that the new one, the proposed one, by adding more information, you're actually restricting the coverage of the original one. Okay? You really are. I prefer the old one or the current one. I respect the Aboriginals, and I have to say I've spoken up in this council where there was racism raised as well. Okay? Well,
Councillor Gassett, please
we have to be transparent, don't we? There was racism in this council.
Councillor Gassett, take a seat. That is completely unnecessary. I would ask you to retract that statement, Councillor Gassett.
Mr Mayor, I
Councillor
cannot
Gassett, either retract the
truth.
statement or have a seat.
I will not retract a truth.
Thank you. Is there a speaker against? Speaker for.
I wasn't going to speak, but I'm actually quite horrified by some of the statements by our councillors tonight. It's actually just, I'm actually just a bit really cross. So I'm just trying to get my words. There's no wrong or right way of doing this, but we've actually had consultation with our Aboriginal communities and the Aboriginal elders and the Aboriginal people in this, and if this is what they've actually said that they want, then I have absolutely respect for their decision and what they would like us to do on their country land. So I will please urge our councillors to support this.
Thank you. Speaker against? Sorry, who was the mover? Councillor Giles. Thank you, Councillor Giles.
Mr Mayor, I too am slightly horrified by some of the language that's been used in this debate, and it saddens me greatly. And I've been involved in many organisations now, ECU, TAFE, Aquest, this council and other schools, and there's always been some discussion about what the acknowledgement should be. You know, it's a very small number of words to acknowledge the people who have been here for 60,000 years or more, and who have not been treated well since the colonisation took place of Australia. So I think this is the least we can do, and I think the added words, it certainly is the Noongar people that were particularly, Noongar Wadandi people that were particularly acknowledging, but there are a lot of Aboriginal people in Bunbury who are not Wadandi. So we're trying to cover a few more bases there. So I think this is the least we can do. As I said before, it can be changed if we find that times change and wording changed. When I was in Alaska earlier this year, I won't keep going on about that, but all the acknowledgements that happened in Alaska and the US included the words unceded land, on this unceded land, not the seeds that you plant, but ceding the land to someone. And this is all unceded land, and I think this is the least we can do to acknowledge those people who were here. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Giles. I'll put that. Those in favour of the recommendation, please indicate. Those against? That is carried. Thank you. 10.2.1, councillors. We need nominations for this. So we'll deal with the voting delegates first. I'm happy to be a voting delegate if approved. Is there others who are wanting to be a voting delegate? Councillor Quain? Sorry, this is just the first part for voting delegates. I've said I'm happy to be a voting delegate, and was there any others who want to be a voting delegate? We'll deal with those who are wanting to attend afterwards. Was there any other voting delegates? Okay, Councillor Gosek. I'm guessing we're only allowed 2 voting delegates? Can have a proxy. Is one happy to be a proxy? Councillor Kozisek happy to be a proxy? We'll make sure that's, CEO, sorry, you lost your role. We'll fill that in, that's part one. Those who are wanting to attend, please indicate. So Councillor Kozisek, hands in the air, thank you. Councillor Kozisek, Councillor Gassip, Councillor Giles, Councillor Quain, Councillor Smith, Councillor Steele, and myself. We might be missing one. Yep, she's in there. That's everybody. We're not missing anyone there, are we? Hands up again, please, very quickly. I thought there was 7. Smith is on there, yeah, sorry. Steele. Oh, worry about everyone else but yourself.
Mr Mayor, for clarification, I pulled out from last week.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Councillor Steck. All good? Somebody happy to move that recommendation? Councillor Quain, thank you. Councillor Kozisek, I'll put that. Those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. 10.4.1 councillors does require an absolute majority. Thank you, Councillor Andrew. We have a financial interest. Councillor Andrew will vacate the room. Could I have a mover for this, councillors? Councillor McCleary, a seconder. Councillor Steck. Likely to be any debate, councillors? Thank you. I'll put that. Those in favour? That's carried. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thanks, Councillor Steele. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's turned off. We have one question from Councillor Gassip. Councillor Gassip.
Mr. Mayor, just regarding homelessness. So what is the City of Bunbury doing or has done, I'll add a little bit more, in the short term to ease the housing crisis, homelessness and increase housing stock? And what are the figures in the last couple of years of new dwellings compared to surrounding or neighbouring shires? The second part I'm happy to receive later.
Sure. Second part, I imagine we'll be taking on notice, but the first part, I believe there's been an answer provided. CEO.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. The city's been involved in a number of, incentives and planning instruments to try to improve and increase the availability of land for housing and the density available. And whilst Councillor Gassip has talked about in recent times, I think we do need to go back to local planning scheme number 8, which provided some higher density dwelling opportunities throughout the city. The housing strategy was prepared and presented in 2021 with some key areas, including the area between Spencer Street and Blair Street from Cornwall through to Strickland. And then there's been an application has been made to the federal government to help support the development of the old Neutra Depot site, as well as looking at the racecourse precinct areas that might be available for further housing development. We've been working with Development WA, Mr Mayor, on trying to get Chewett Brook developed. It's been an area that's one of Bunbury's 2 remaining greenfields spaces, as well as supporting and doing a fair bit of work around the Glen Iris District Structure Plan. The city, through yourself and staff, have approached a number of developers to try to attract additional developers down into Bunbury for more high-density development. The city also supported the Tiny Houses project to get that off the ground adjacent to the Salvation Army site. We have worked with Department of Communities for additional lot releases in Withers, and through suggestion, I think it was by Councillor Andrew, in last year's rate notices, there was a flyer sent out to every ratepayer in Bunbury asking them to contact our staff to look at the opportunity of further developing their current sites with either ancillary accommodation or further development. So the city's been playing its part as best it can, as well as supporting the state government around its Housing First strategy and also the wraparound services provided to those people experiencing homelessness through rough sleeping.
Thank you, CEO. Councillors, that brings us to a close for this meeting. I'll declare this meeting closed at 6:20. We do have the special council meeting starting at 6:30, so for those who are here to attend that, we'll take a breather and we'll be back in 9 minutes. Thank you. Thank you, councillors. Thank you, staff. Thank you, members of the public. I'll declare this meeting open. This is a special meeting of council. I would like to acknowledge the Wadandi Noongar people and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. Apologies, I don't have the new wording in front of me. I will stick with that one for now. This special meeting has been called for the city to adopt the corporate business plan, the long-term financial plan and the 2023-24 annual budget, plus to adopt the rate in the dollar. Sorry, minute taker. If you could just go back up slightly. Plus that one there, and also to adopt the rate in the dollar, the minimum rate for general and specified area rate that council will levy on proposed gross rental valuations, and to adopt the proposed charges for refuge collection waste minimisation. We are all here Are there any declarations of interest, councillors, on tonight's budget? Thank you. Councillors, we have the adoption of the City of Bunbury Corporate Business Plan 2023-24 to the 2026-27 Long-Term Financial Plan. The recommendation is there. Could I have somebody move that? Thank you, Councillor Andrew. Seconder. Thank you, Councillor Yip. I'll take. Likely to be debate on this, councillors? Yes, thank you. Councillor Andrew.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just like to, I guess, acknowledge the amount of time and effort that the organisation and councillors, Mr Mayor, have put into the formulation of the business plan and long-term financial plan. Whilst we do adopt these items tonight, they do not, I guess, lock in any or guarantee any future project or investment, but it just does give council and the organisation a line of sight on the direction we wish to take for the next 4 years of the business plan and the next 10 years the long-term financial plan. I think it is worth noting, Mr Mayor, that this time this is probably almost the final pieces of the jigsaw puzzle that have been put together on a very long journey that council has been through the original adoption of the integrated reporting and planning framework, which set out, I guess, the plans and the policies that council was going to, I guess, focus on. Those have all slotted in together now. As noted, Mr Mayor, the asset management plan, service facilities plans have informed the workforce plan and the long-term financial plan, and now we come here tonight, the corporate business plan. These give us a truly integrated approach and a great line of sight and great transparency to the community, Mr Mayor, about how we're going to, I guess, fund and provide services and assets to the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Andrew. Councillor Yip, nothing from you. Speaker against, Councillor Gassett.
I'll be speaking against this. So the long-term financial plan, I'm mostly speaking against it because I'm very concerned about our financial health, especially as reflected in the long-term financial plan. If you look at the ratios, page 52, 53, operating surplus ratio, asset consumption ratio, asset sustainability ratio, asset renewal ratio, are all projected to be in the red from about 2 or 3 years onwards, and well under the required standards by the Department of Local Government, and well under the actual preferred as well. So I guess what I'm trying to say here is, I'm not questioning our accounting capabilities, I'm questioning our financial health. And that I believe now we are at a stage we need to call in help, the specialists, whether it's Department of Local Government or one of the big 4 accounting firms to come and give us some assistance. Because if we keep going with the way we are, not my projections, your own projections, our own projections, we will need intensive care. So I'll be speaking against this because it doesn't really call out for help, which is really what we need.
Speaker 4, Councillor Giles.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm compelled to speak because I think this is my 8th budget on council here in Bunbury, And I have to say, this is the most well-prepared, interrogated budget we have ever had. We've had more time than ever before to look at it. Started in January. We've had many solid days where we've discussed and debated amongst ourselves about what's the right thing to do and what's not the right thing to do. And we've come up with what we think, or what I think, is a solid plan. Yes, we're not flush, but we are going to be okay, and we have planned appropriately. And I think that all the hard work that everybody's put in, especially the staff, I'd like to compliment everybody for their commitment, and the councillors as well, to doing this work solidly. And I'm very confident that what we've got is a good product. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Giles. Is there a speaker against? Councillor Andrew? Nothing further? I'll put that. Those in favour, please indicate. Those against? One against. Thank you. 7.2 is the adoption of the City of Bunbury 2023-24 budget. The executive recommendation is in front of us. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor McCleary, thank you. A seconder? Councillor Giles, thank you. Likely to be debate, councillors. Yep, councillor. Thank you. Councillor McCleary. Sure, thank you. Councillor Giles.
Again, Mr Mayor, just commenting that we spend a lot of time agonising over every aspect of this budget, including the rates. And I think we've come up with something that will work for us. Anything less may see us in trouble, and I think that we have to do this, otherwise it'll be even worse next year. So I just have one comment to say, which I forgot to say in the last bit. I reserve my right next year to make sure we have a place for women, young women's leadership programs, as we have for the boys. So I hope that we can get that into next year, but
Thank you,
we'll
Councillor.
just have to leave it as it is. So I think this is good for Bunbury. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Giles. Budget review in October as well, which will take those recommendations. Is there a speaker against? Councillor Steck.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. For a start, can I just go to the annual budget, page 6? It stipulates that the Meridian weekly rent is $300, and that is simply not the case. It's simply not the case. A quick search on the internet, you'll find that most of the properties anywhere above 3 bedrooms are looking at $600 to $700 a week. And, you know, units, it says the Meridian is at $380, but in fact, have a look on Domain and it's about $550. So, and if it goes by bedrooms as well, 4 bedroom is that a rate increase of 10.69%, or the cents in the dollar, in this climate.
Councillor, I'll just clarify that. It's the rate in the dollar is 10.69 cents in the dollar, not percentage.
Yes, but I did say cents, sir.
Okay, sorry, Councillor Steck, stand corrected.
Thank you. And as I will just go back to say, in this climate, it is really not achievable for an average household, when, again, the average income here on our budget paper on page 6 is $1,326 weekly household income. And I would think that, you know, a lot of people are on higher wages than that, but some are on a lot less. And electricity prices are going through the roof, and they will continue to go through the roof, because I know it's not related to this, but all budget items are, and that is once we move to renewable energies and rely more and more on those, then the supply in baseload power is just not there. So the reality is there's going to be over-reliance, and that'll be pushed within 2 years, prices will be through the roof. The inflation at the moment is sitting at around 7%, and in fact, from the Reserve Bank, it's had a bit of a creep back. But as you know, sir, building costs are through the roof. Some unions are already looking at trying to do a super tax to try and accommodate housing, which is not going to solve the housing problem, by the way, because land releases are still going to cost the same because of all the headworks and things. So even when we do tackle, from the CEO's responses earlier, housing and trying to place more housing in the community, the average house price is not going to go down. It is going to maintain at this level, and if not higher, because building supplies and all those sorts of things have dried up, even though I must admit there is some small movement at the station. Let me get to the lessons we learned in COVID on food supply. Food and grocery shopping at the moment is through the roof. Meat is extraordinarily expensive. Groceries are on average $120 a week more than what they were 2 years ago, or even 18 months ago. So you have to take into all these costs, and including sport, what our fees and charges, for example, that are coming next. Sporting costs for families in these communities is becoming unreachable. Some sports are $200 in fees. If you've got 3 children and they're playing sport, then you've got equipment costs, then you've got other extracurricular costs, then you've got school books and things like that. It is becoming closer and closer and closer to more and more families on the impoverished list. And you only have to take the word from the Salvation Army and all those outreach programs for finance guidance, all those sorts of things. You're already starting to see mortgage stress. And anyone that's got a mortgage will know you only have to look at the books and your mortgage has gone up considerably. So everything adds, and including all other gas expenses, all other government utilities, all even driver's licence, renewals, everything, even including tyres for simple, upgrades of vehicles. So, I kid you not, this budget shouldn't be at this level. This is a time when we should be pulling our belts in. It says so in the budget that we are, not impoverished, but ourselves, we don't have a lot of money, and we are trying to try and maximise what we can do. But I'm simply saying some projects put on the shelf for a little bit. Some projects should not be engaged at this point in time. And I do believe that it's up to all of us to pull our belts in to help the entire community. And I just wish that people could see that now's not the time to march steam ahead with such a high budget.
Thank you, Councillor Steck. Speaker 4, Councillor Steele.
I again wasn't going to speak, but I have to clarify a few things. All those prices have gone up, and have not only gone up for our residents, but also gone up for our city, and we also have to wear those costs as well, because we still have services to provide. We unfortunately can't keep running at a loss. We have to actually acknowledge that those things have happened, but have also happened to our city's finances. And I can only reiterate what Councillor Giles has said, that we have spent so much time to try and get the tightest budget we can without getting ourselves in trouble now and in the future. And yes, we can acknowledge that that rental properties are high, but we also have to maybe then go to our state or our federal government and say, well, we have to stop having the greedy landlords for having too many rentals, which then pushes up prices and unaffordable housing for people. So that's the sort of thing that we could maybe lobby for, rather than actually say that the rents are high. There's nothing that's out of our scope, unfortunately, because it's a private enterprise. But I would just want to acknowledge that yes, unfortunately, the whole world is going through increases in everything, and it's not just us, unfortunately, but we have to acknowledge those prices, and our electricity and the gases also happens to our services, and we have to cover those.
Thank you. Is there a speaker against? Councillor Gassett.
So we have had, I think, 12 interest rate rises. The proposed rate rise that we've done has already been factored into commercial leases. So the agents are out there already factoring the 7% rate rises when the leases are getting renewed. So just something to watch out for next time when we put it out there. So what I want to really highlight here is what the actual rate rise is. It is not 7%. It's far greater. If you look at the page 11, residential recycling service, on average the cost, I'll give you, say, 168 this year versus 124 last year. That's an extra $40. Add that to the average rate rise of 93, you got $133. Divide that by last year's rates, 1350 or something, you get about 9.5% rate rise in reality. So the actual rate rise, when you allow for the cost of increase in residential recycling service, Mr. Mayor, far greater than 7%, 9.5%. You do the work, calculations yourself, we have an accountant here. So why shouldn't we, when we do these public disclosures of what we're doing, why shouldn't we put the real rate rise in there? I think it would probably be worthwhile. So I just want to really highlight that point. The rate rise closer to 9.5% on average. The other thing I'm a little bit concerned about, this hasn't happened yet, but we know what's happened to rental valuations over the last couple of years. On average, they've gone up 25 to 30%. Now, I tried to discuss it previously with someone, but we didn't get very far. What that means in a couple of years when the GRV comes through, so it doesn't increase the pool of revenue, what it will do is it will skew the rate collection from commercial towards residential. And we're going to be looking up, when you aggregate the next two proposed rate rises, 6 and 5.5, and then add the gross valuation into residential, we could be looking in the 20% rate rise in 2026, if not more. Okay? They're the facts.
Let's not speculate. Councillor Gassett, please.
Well, we do actually do forecasts in our budget estimates. We actually used the inflation where we speculated it was going to be 5%, ended up at 8.1%. Even our own assumptions are wrong. And it was speculated. But, we know what's happened to rental values, and it will be reflected in the collection of residential rates. So, Capel Shire, their rate rise was a lot more. And I'll just quote one of their councillors. I think the councillors are very mindful of people who are doing it tough out there. The councillors are very mindful of the people who are doing it tough out there. The other thing I just want to add into this, and I don't want to go into controversy, so I'll ask it in a nice way. It'd be nice to know what influence the losses in the Bunbury Harbour Regional Council had towards our budget. And we're talking millions of dollars. So I go back to the original, I'll close off with the original suggestion. The truth in our rate rise is going to be 9.5% when you allow for the increase in residential recycling service. 9.5% is the real rate rise. I'm not going to vote for this. I will not support this. I will take the path that the councillors of Capel have suggested, mindful of the people that are doing it tough out there. I can add a lot more to this, but I'll leave it at that for now.
Thank you, councillors. I'll speak for this. And I'd like to, on the basis that I did initially vote against and did not support a 7% rate increase back in March. As we are very aware, we've had a number of workshops going through this. When it was quite clear there was some discussion around this rate increase, we brought it to this council to discuss. Also made it clear that during that process, whatever council at the time were interested in adopting was something that we should be sticking to for good governance for our finance team, who I think done an incredible job putting this together to ensure some continuity in what they're doing. As I mentioned, I didn't support 7%. But I've also suggested to council that if we wanted a rate less than 7%, we need to start working out what we're going to miss out on. We had opportunities to do that. I can't think of any opportunities to anybody, and notwithstanding some of the comments being made now, we can postpone projects. We have had every opportunity to do that. We haven't wanted to do that at that stage, and we haven't wanted to reduce our services to our ratepayers. If we wanted to have a lower rate increase, we had that opportunity to do that, and we'd have to find areas to reduce what services we provide to our community. This council wants to continue to do that. Let's not, the comments around cost of living, 100% true, and I 100% agree with them. They also apply to us. We're looking at an inflation rate of 5.2%. This 7% rate increase includes 0.5 cents between to 0.5% to char mapping, 0.5 map to climate change, and 0.5% to asset renewal. So the real rate in that side of things is 5.5%. We want to talk about facts. We are talking about the general rate in the dollar here. You can throw that in with other muddy waters and other numbers that may be making on assumptions or not. But this is...
Not muddying the waters. I provided real
Councillor
facts.
Gassam, take a seat. Yeah, I don't accept your point of order. We are dealing right now with the executive recommendation in front of us, which is dealing with the general rate on our gross rental value. That's what we're dealing with. If you would like to talk about the refuse collection rate, talk about that in the next agenda item. I'll continue what I was saying. We're in a situation that we've had multiple opportunities to discuss what we would like to reduce from our budget, if anything. As we understand, that means reducing our services. Council is not determined to do that. If we're in a situation now where we don't want to support this budget, we're in a situation where we don't have a budget to deal with. So I'm very much encouraging, I'm very much thankful of the council workshops that we've had and the city we've worked with and the staff that we've worked with to come up with this. As I mentioned, my initial reservations were there, but we now have a budget which we can present, which continues our important community services that we're running, while also maintain some of the projects that we are looking to follow up. So that's why I'll be supporting this recommendation. Is there a speaker against? Is there any speaker against? Mr. Renger, you're not part of this discussion, and I'll ask you to not make any further comment, thank you. It's not a question, Tom. Mr. Renger, if you're going to make any more comments, I'll ask you to leave the chamber again. Is there a speaker against? Councillor McCleary?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. You did a wonderful job. Thank you so much in explaining everything so well. And I just have to say thanks. Thanks to everybody that came to all the workshops. Those who were unable to attend, it's really unfortunate that they didn't, because their questions possibly would have been answered at that time. I want to thank the executive as well, because they really drilled down in the simplest lay terms of explanation and research, so we fully understood the responsibilities that we have when we brought this to the table tonight. And also just the understanding that we all have here tonight is probably the best that we've ever had in the 9 years that I've been on City Council. So thank you everybody for listening, understanding, learning, and I really hope that our community do understand, and those who are really stuck financially and are in a distressed financial situation, we are here, our staff are here to sit down on a one-to-one to work something out for them, a plan. So thank you very much.
Thank you. This item requires an absolute majority. Those in favour, please indicate. Those against? 4 against. That was carried with an absolute majority. Thank you. Item 2, councillors. The recommendation is there. Could I have a mover for that recommendation? Thank you, Councillor Steele. Is there a seconder? Councillor Andrew, thank you. Likely to be debate on this, councillors? Yes. Councillor Steele? Councillor Andrew? Councillor Gassett?
So I had every right to include it.
Councillor Gassett, please focus on this item.
Okay, so this item, 134 and so on, if you go down to the recycling, it's about 30%, 25 to 30% greater than previous year. So, and that represents about 2.5% of an increase in rates. And when I said it should be added onto the rates, it should be, because it is part of the original previous executive recommendation. It's listed there on page
Councillor
11.
Gassab, deal with this executive recommendation, please.
I need to clarify. So, I feel we should be telling the community, and not be embarrassed or scared about it, what the real rate rises are. So besides the actual rate rise of 7%, we've got another 2.5% above the last year's rate on average to be included in the bill to the ratepayer. Right? It's not embarrassing, Mr. Mayor, to put up our hand and say, look, we are in trouble. We are in financial trouble. We can't.
Point of order, and I'm sorry to
Councillor
do this,
Steele.
Councillor Gassab, but the councillor is not actually speaking to the motions, which is regarding our refuse collection and waste minimisation.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thanks, Councillor Steele. Councillor Gassab, your debate is around this current executive recommendation. Please make sure it's directed to this and not other items.
So maybe we should put our hand up and say we need help in the Bunbury Harbour Regional Council, which is to do with refuse.
Councillor Gassab, again, this isn't to do with this, is to do with our charge of collection of bin. Point of order, sorry, Councillor Smith.
Regarding the Bunbury Harvey Regional
Yeah,
Council.
so
Mr. Mayor.
again, Councillor Gassab, this is to do with our bin collection, nothing to do with Bunbury Harbour Regional Council. So please make your comments around this particular item.
I'm not sure if recycling doesn't affect the Bunbury Harbour Regional Council. Someone
Point
might
of
clarify.
order.
Councillor Turner.
Doesn't recycling has nothing to do with Bunbury Harvey Council? It's a private collection.
Yeah, so Councillor Gassab, again, if you can restrict your comments to this particular item and this particular item on services and charges for the City of Bunbury, please.
So other charges about garbage collection is to do with the Bunbury Harbour Regional Council. So I say we should put our hand up and look at ways to reduce future escalation in costs and the impacts on the budget from the Bunbury Harbour Regional Council. It's not embarrassing to put our hand up. In fact, we're obliged to do it. If we think there's something wrong, we're obliged to do it. So back to the
Point of
original
order,
motion.
Mr. Mayor, we've already said that was not dealing with the Bunbury Harbour Regional Council.
Thank you, Councillor McCleary.
And Mr. Mayor, if I ask the question, these wonderful questions could have been asked at any workshop that he wished to
Councillor McCleary,
attend, which
take
he
a
didn't.
seat.
I'd have to provide a personal explanation here, Mr. Mayor, if there's a...
I'm not asking for one, Councillor Gassab.
Well, I'm asking for a personal explanation.
I'm not asking you to provide one.
I'm asking to be provided the personal explanation in accordance with standing orders.
And as the presiding member, I can ask if you would like to make a personal explanation. I'm not asking you to make a personal explanation, so
I
don't
have
make
a
one.
right, Mr. Mayor, look at standing orders.
I
I have
am-
a right to make a personal explanation. There was a suggestion.
Councillors,
and
I'd like
towards
to
me.
I'd like to move a procedural motion that Councillor Gassab no longer be heard from on this item. Is there a seconder? Thank you, Councillor McCleary. I'll put that. All those in favour, please indicate. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Those against? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Could I ask for that vote again? Those in favour, please indicate. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Those against? 7, sorry. That's carried. Councillor Gassab, on this particular item, the procedural motion is that you can no longer be heard on this item. That is in place for this item. Is there a speaker for? I'll go back to Councillor Steele. I'll put the particular executive recommendation. Those in favour, please indicate. Those against? Thank you. Item 3, councillors. Mr. Renger, I'm going to ask one more time. I know comments can be heard from you. I've asked you to be quiet in this chamber, and I'll ask you one more time. Mr. Renger, I'm going to ask you one more time. I don't want to ask you to leave this chamber, but I will if I hear from you again. Item 3, councillors. Could somebody move that? Thank you, Councillor McCreary. Is there a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Kozisek. Councillor McCreary? Thank you, Councillor Kozisek. Is there a speaker against? Councillor Gassab?
I'd like just to put a question on notice that you check the standing orders. I do have a right Okay?
There's no point for a question right now, councillor Gassett.
As a right of explanation. Okay? Have a look at standing.
Carry on with your debate.
Okay, so this one is, just to say, again, I'm concerned about finances. We are reducing our reserves for the budget by over $6 million and we are borrowing over $8 million. Not a good sign, not a good trajectory. Put our hand up. Let's ask for someone to come and help us.
Is there a speaker for? Councillor McCleary? I'll put it. Those in favour, please indicate. Those against? 2 against. That's carried. Thank you. Item 4, recommendation for the budgets for the following funds. Could I have somebody move that, please? Councillor Andrew, Councillor McCleary, thank you. Councillor Andrew, Councillor McCleary. Is there likely to be a speaker against this? Thank you. I'll put that. Those in favour, please indicate. Those against? Thank you. Item 5, the due dates. Is there a speaker for? Sorry, is there a mover? Councillor Kozisek, is there a seconder? Councillor Andrew, thank you. Councillor Kozisek. Councillor Andrew. Speaker against? I'll put that, thank you. Those against? 1 against, thank you. Item 6. Could I have somebody move this executive recommendation, please? Thank you. Councillor Ib, a seconder. Councillor Quain. Councillor Yip. Councillor Quain. Speaker against. Councillor Steele.
I'm actually quite, I do speak up against this one every year, and I will continue to speak against this every year, and I think this is where, when people are doing it tough and they have to do it quarterly or they have to do ad hoc payments, I do not think that they should actually have extra fees. I'm not quite sure why we do that, and I have done this every year since this was introduced, so I have to vote against this because I don't want people that are doing it tough to have an extra fee on top. I know it's only $7 or $32, but it's still extra on the rates that they are having to pay.
Thank you. Speaker for? Councillor Yip. I'll put this recommendation. Those in favour, please indicate. Those against? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Sorry, those 4 again. Sorry, councillors. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Those against? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Does this require an absolute majority? No worries. This hasn't passed. I'll just ask the CEO if we need some kind of ruling on this. I'd imagine we'd need some form, but I'll just ask the CEO to confirm on that.
Through you, Mr Mayor, even the preparation of our budget, our rates notices need to be quite clear in terms of the arrangements for payments. So without an arrangement for payments that need to be stipulated on the rates notices, we can't send out the rates notices. So we would need some form of decision from council on the administration interest fees on rates, rubbish, waste minimisation and general debtor collection charges for 23-24.
So on this particular point, I might ask Councillor Steele as a speaker against if she had any idea on suggestions around some of the wording that she may be comfortable with.
Thank you. I think if we gave an explanation of the $32 admin, is that obviously going towards staff costs, and the $7, I didn't think this was actually going to get lost, so I was like, but if you could explain exactly why, it just, yeah.
Sure. CEO, I'll just ask for an explanation on that. Thanks. First, Councillor Giles.
Look, I'll have first go at this, and perhaps either Ms Strawn or Mr Ransom may want to add into this. So the Local Government Act allows local governments to make charges against fees and the schedule of instalments that people may wish to make. The City of Bunbury has, for a number of years now, provided great flexibility for the ratepayers in making payments, and we still only charge, and I'll say only, so excuse me, I'll say we still charge $7 for the only the instalment notices, which are the initial rate notice and then 3 instalment notices, Mr. Ransom. So it's $21 for people to pay their rates by instalments. They can choose to pay 52 payments. They can choose to pay 12 payments, however they choose to make those arrangements with our staff. There are maximum fees set in the Local Government Act as well, and maximum interest rates set. I believe that the 11% is currently regulated as a maximum fee that local governments are able to charge as penalty interest rates for unpaid instalments. So the $7 is in the view of the administration, is a modest charge for the time it takes to produce the additional notices for postage and for staff time in doing the, I guess, the data entry into our system. I'm not sure if Mr. Ransom had anything further to add to that.
Councillor Giles had a question.
Could you please explain what we have in place for those that really are genuinely suffering and cannot pay? What sorts of arrangements we can make for those people?
See ya.
So, and again, I might seek some help from other staff, but the city's rate collection in my time here at the City of Bunbury, I don't think has dropped below 97% in any one year. So, is that correct? Yeah, so even during COVID, we were still collecting 97% of rates applied in that financial year. If anyone is having significant difficulties, they are strongly encouraged to talk to our city staff and to make arrangements. So we actually have some community members who have come and arranged payment plans where they have found themselves in difficulty to be able to afford their rates for that year, for whatever those circumstances might be, unemployment or whatever that may be. And our city staff help them to organise those payment plans. As I indicated earlier, if someone wanted to pay their rates off in 52 payments, we would make that arrangement for them, and they would only incur 3 of those instalment plan administration fees across the year. Does that address that question, Councillor?
So can they actually defer, payments to another year, or somehow put them on the estate, or however? I don't know how it works, but I'm sure there is.
So there are a number of other arrangements in place. So first of all, anyone eligible for a concession card, either as a pensioner or a seniors card, can access a rate discount or rate concession. So that's paid for by the state government, and then they can also access other utilities, including Aquest, Water Corporation, etc. So if someone doesn't pay their rates, the Local Government Act allows, if someone does not make any attempt to pay their rates and they're 3 years or more outstanding, the Local Government Act gets to the point where it allows local governments to actually sell those properties and recover those costs. I don't know the City of Bunbury, in my experience here, and I don't recall that happening in Bunbury through even any research that I've done. The City of Bunbury's never taken that course of action to my knowledge. If anyone needs to defer, so pensioners can defer their rates, and they can defer them in perpetuity until such time as either they sell their house or wander off to that next part of their life. And so there are a number of opportunities for people who, either whether they are pensioners or who are struggling, to come to us and talk about their individual circumstances, and we'll provide the support that we can within the range of options that Council has supported. Mr. Ransom, anything further?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just to add to the CEO's comments that pensioners can defer the rates and there is no interest on that deferment.
The questions then, sorry. Is there any option for people that are truly going through hardship, whether there's any chance of waiving the $7 and you've just stated that 11% is the highest interest rate or the maximum we're allowed, and I really do apologise because I was one of those councillors that was unable to attend some of the meetings, so I do wear these questions on myself, and I just think the staff have done an amazing job this year, so I apologise. So is there any reason why we have gone for the maximum of 11%? Because that, I think, if we've gone for the maximum, I do think that we could maybe just reduce that, but I'd also like a chance of the fees, if people can provide that they're actually in financial hardship, I would prefer to have those fees waived, if that can be an option or a discretionary option.
CEO?
Well, council can determine that. I think probably just in terms of if I move to the late interest charge, where people have made arrangements for those payment plans, they will not be considered to be in debt and they won't be considered to be an unpaid debt. So that's the first thing. So that's the encouragement for people to come and talk to staff to make those arrangements. And probably any changes tonight will have some form of impact on the budget. I don't think these are the highest revenue streams that the city has in our budget, but any changes to these will have an impact. We did have the hardship policy which was introduced during COVID. I think we've just revoked that over the last few months. But if council was interested in even if these went through unchanged tonight, if council wished to add something tonight for us to look at reviewing a hardship policy, bring that through to Policy Review and Development Committee, and we could actually have a look at where we can make some other supporting measures for those people struggling.
Very comfortable.
Sorry. I think there was a question from Councillor Smith first, Councillor Steele, then you might have a performance.
I think I was going to ask the same question as Councillor Giles. I think it's been answered. However, can I ask, would an amendment be in order that would perhaps halve these fees? Because I think if someone deliberately is late paying with their rates, I'm not saying hardship, I'm saying that some people don't do it, there has to be some kind of signal that there is some small penalty. I don't think if 3% of our rates aren't paid, it's going to be a huge amount.
Yeah,
The CEO said 97%. So is there a possibility for an amendment to this motion, just to help things out to halve?
We need an amendment, yeah. We need to have some form of recommendation here, so we certainly need an amendment. I think Councillor Steele was about to suggest something, so I might just wait to hear what she was going to suggest, if that's okay, Councillor Smith.
If we have a point 6 regarding reintroduction of our hardship policy, or with that policy to go
Come back to council?
Yeah, to go back to the Policy Review Committee. I would like to see that in there. I just think we have to do that.
I'll get this wording done up. Thanks, Councillor Steele.
Mr Mayor, can I just ask a question?
Sure.
I think the CEO has answered it, and I think actually Mr David Ransom did answer, I'm sure, that when the concession and seniors and customers who are having a hardship, they are not going to be charged the interest on their instalments, even if they did 52 or, instalments. Can you just confirm that to our community, please?
In instance with the CEO not being there, I'll say yes, but Mr Ranson, through the CEO, you're able to answer that for us, please?
Yes, Mr Mayor. Just to confirm, pensioners and seniors can defer rates and they don't get charged interest on any outstanding balance. If you are not a pensioner or senior, you do get charged interest if you have not paid your rates and you're late.
Thank you. That is confirmed, Councillor Stack. We just got that one without you, CEO. Councillor Steele, was that the intent of your point 6, which is now B? You will second that? Thank you. Councillor Steele, you want to speak to this?
I think I just apologise that due to work commitments I wasn't able to attend some of the things.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor McCleary, anything? Is there a speaker against this now recommendation? Councillor Gassett.
Thank you. I've been patiently waiting back for another opportunity to speak. And, people might get upset at what I say. But I have to say, I did raise a point of order about personal explanation. It's not a discretion that you have, Mr Mayor. I do have a right. And by the way, when Councillor McCleary questioned my attendance, you've got a letter from our lawyers to provide an explanation to any person that asks questions. I'll just put that aside, notwithstanding the fact that we haven't applied law here and provided me a personal explanation. So we're showing here compassion. We're showing compassion, Councillor McCleary. And people are going to get upset about some hypocrisy, right? And I wasn't going to say these things, but I was questioned. Now, there are allegations that people have said some pretty nasty things about ratepayers.
Councillor Gassab, I'm going to ask
Okay.
you again to refer to
Well-
this item.
Well, it's true.
But Councillor
Slit in the
Gassab-
throat of a
sorry,
ratepayer does not really,
Point of order.
it's true.
Point of
It's a
order.
true allegation.
Councillor Gassab.
Or putting a
This
noose
is-
around the
Councillor
neck.
Gassab, take a seat.
Sorry, but-
When a point of order is called, Councillor Gassab, you take a seat.
And when a-
Councillor
Point of-
Gassab.
Order. This has no reference to what we're speaking about here. And
Thank you, Councillor Turner. I got your point of order. Your point of order is relevance. I accept that point of order. Councillor Gassab, we're here to talk about this item. This is your last opportunity to talk about this item. No more talking about items that are not relating to this particular point. You can continue.
It's just that if you provide me the personal explanation under law, it would have been all gone smooth.
I don't think it would have.
So, Mr. Mayor, I don't feel that we've provided the community with the right sort of compassion here, quite frankly. And to go through and debate all this, not having put it in the first place, you guys have said, I've gone through heaps and heaps of briefings about the budget, and here we are spending a long time on this motion where people have had their chance to have input as well. But that's fine. I've said what I had to. Mr. Mayor, but next time I ask for a personal explanation,
Thanks,
please.
Councillor Gassab. Take a seat. Is there a speaker for? I'll put this alternative motion. Those in favour, please indicate. Those against? That's carried. Item 8, Item 7, waivers and concessions. Thank you, Councillor Steele. As a seconder, Councillor McCleary. Councillor Steele? No. Councillor McCleary? Speaker against? I'll put that. Those in favour? That's carried. Thank you. Item 8, councillors, is there a mover to this? Councillor Steele, seconder, Councillor Yip. Speaker, Councillor Steele. Councillor Yip. Speaker against? I'll put it. Those in favour? Those against? That's carried. Thank you. Item 9, schedule fees and charges, councillors. Somebody happy to move that? Thank you, Councillor Steele, a seconder. Councillor McCleary, speaker against.
So can I just ask a question?
Of course you can.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and I think I raise this every year. The registration of infringement notices with the enforcement agency, do we send notice out by way of all communications that we can on that person to inform them that by having their infringement notice enforced with an agency, their driver's licence is revoked, sir, and they can be fined through the police if picked up?
CEO.
Through Mr Mayor, my understanding is that in our debt collection process, anyone who has an outstanding infringement is notified. They get probably 2 or 3 letters from us, and one of those letters would include a warning that unpaid fines will be referenced or referred back to the Fines Enforcement Registry, and there are consequences to that. The exact wording I'm not quite sure of, but I can provide that to you out of session if you'd like.
Is there a speaker against? I'll put this. Those in favour, please indicate. Those against? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 10. Is there a mover? Can you, Councillor Steele, a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Yip. Speaker against? I'll put that. Those in favour, please indicate. That's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Councillors, that brings us to a close. Once again, I'd like to thank councillors and the staff for working through this budget. We have a budget breakfast on the 4th of August. Thank you very much.
I don't think we did the specified area rate for Pelican
Yeah,
Point.
it was in the part 1, Councillor.
Okay.
Yep, thank you. I will declare this meeting closed. Thank you. Thanks, sir.
Thank